D&D players of Reddit, what is the most creative thing you've seen done in a game? Part 1. Disabled 2 goblins in combat while taking out a few others. Thought the next room had a boss, so we wanted to go in with caution. Nat 20 and managed to convince the 2 goblins to help us take down their boss, and we would reward them by letting them live and having some loot. We got some info, but also needed help as it was clear that the next room was going to be a shit show. I came up with the idea that we should stack them on each other, give them a torch, and have someone use their disguise kit to give them a trench coat. They agreed, but the bottom goblin has to roll a strength check to see if he could support the top goblin. Our DM said this probably was not going to work. Nat 20, and thus, Goblin Adultman was born. Goblin Adultman went into the room and was promptly killed by an ambush. We had the advantage and won, while not having to share the loot. In one version of D&D, undead were described as being able to store only a set number of scenarios and a number of set responses. Cue our group working out, this meant skeletons were basically magical and/or switches. So we pared down the skeletons to the most basic components needed: a skull, some spine, and a single arm. We set up several in a pocket dimension, with orders along the lines of, if X happens, touch your neighbor, and if your neighbor touches you, do Y. We basically built a huge analog computer out of undead parts, housed in a pocket dimension. Then the GM had it evolve sentience. Deep rot. Love this stuff. DM'd a game once where the big bad was undead AI made out of zombies and skeletons. Each one was super easy to kill, even for an average villager with a pitchfork. But altogether, the AI was manipulating events on an international scale. The players ended up uncovering how a lich had left his undead, partially functioning AI in some massive cavern in the Underdark. The lich had been killed thousands of years ago, so it sat, stuck in a loop, for all that time. Then it was disrupted by a newly formed lich, who had come looking for the large amount of necromantic energies and didn't yet understand what he was looking at. His disruption knocked some things into place, which allowed it to start learning, and the lich eventually got dominated by the AI. My nieces wanted to play D&D, so I DM'd a game for them that I homebrewed to take it easy on them. These kids were fucking ruthless. They came upon a much weaker character who had knowledge of strange goings-on they were investigating. Once they overpowered him, they had an actual discussion whether or not to torture him to get info or just kill him on the spot. They opted to tie him up and take him with them, using him as a meat shield if he lied and got them into a bad situation, and protecting him if he was truthful. I made sure the character told the truth because I wanted to see how they'd handle it at the end. They left him tied to a boat dock and went on their merry way. If you haven't played D&D with kids, try it. They come up with some really inventive strategies that will surprise the hell out of you. During off time, this one warlock would buy a bunch of bread and wine and go down to the slums where the homeless lived. Then he would sit there and, using detect thoughts, know the names of homeless, he'd call them over and ask them a secret. If they told him something true, he'd give them bread and wine. If they lied, they got nothing. Eventually, the homeless realized he could tell if they were lying and would only tell the truth. When they ran out of their own secrets to tell, they started finding out secrets about other people. Some started to worship him. He totally encouraged it. Eventually, he was the leader of a homeless spy cult. I try to emphasize more smart thinking and investigation in my story rather than a lot of fighting. But I must say this is only possible thanks to my excellent players. Basically, they found out a group of thugs were planning to ambush them in their base. 2 of my party members had had their main weapons stolen, and so they were heavily underarmed compared to their enemy. They then set up a Home Alone style set of booby traps, drawing out the plan of the base and everything, by using random items and things from their explorer packs, gear, etc. They managed to take out most of the enemy in hilariously gruesome ways, which helped them with their victory in the main fight. It was great. I am lucky to have my players. One of my players is a goblin shaman with no legs. To walk, she crafted herself spider-like mechanical legs that she controls by channeling lightning from her waist stump to the unit to control it. She gets a talisman after a really difficult boss that allows perfect control of the elements, at the cost of not being able to use your limbs. While she's done fine without legs, no arms should be easy. She takes her backup legs at their base, rigs each one of them up for a different elemental nature, and creates Goblin Shaman Elemental Spiderwalker Voltron. Legs of wind and fire, arms of lightning and water/ice, a torso of earth, and a head of all elements blended together. She enshrouded her metal skeleton in elements like armor and began her character journey anew. from my significant other, since I do nothing in D&D worth adding. I was playing a rogue in a high-level campaign. My DM had allowed me to pray to the goddess Nocturne for a blessing, and I was answered with what we called the Hands of Nocturne. Basically, I was allowed to steal anything I wanted with a high enough roll via percentiles. The DM would choose a number based on how absurd my request was, and away I would roll. It had 3 uses, so I had to be careful with what I chose. The last use was burnt on a boss fight. We encountered an 8-story tentacle behemoth. I turned to my DM and said, I want to steal it. He laughed and said I have a 1% chance, meaning I needed a perfect 100 on my roll. Wouldn't you know, that's exactly what I got. I proceeded to bend space and time as I folded this enormous creature in half dozens of times until he was the size of a sticky note, and into my pocket he went. I grafted a red dragon's head to a purple worm, gave it skeletal arms, and magic jarred into it. Worm mecha that could cast spells. Then got ate by a giant frog and dismissed myself from its extraplanar stomach and copied my mind into it by accident. By the end of the campaign, it had 2 mouths that led to its extraplanar stomach that was full of black sand. It also had 4 arms, 8 legs, and had 38 hit dice. Oh, and it was spell-stitched, so it could animate undead daily and then make them intelligent. It was also self-healing. It also had bone scythes coming out of its back and had master-crafted bone armor. It had like 8 natural attacks. It was nuts. We were stuck on a necromancy-attuned floating continent. It was a Dark Souls-themed campaign. The druid in my party decided that wild shape is the best thing ever, because it is. He's turned into a bird and dive-bombed enemies' faces and the like. So done that. Climbed up a tree and dropped on enemies as a horse even. My character had acquired a Cloak of Many Things. It's a cheap magic item which has these tearaway patches that turn into simple items like chairs, torches, 10-foot poles, etc. when removed. Me and my crew were about to be eaten by a giant plant monster when I was getting desperate and looked at the cloak and realized it had an iron door on it. I threw the patch in its mouth, which nearly killed it and obstructed its only means of doing serious damage. My wife confirmed natural 20 to befriend a zombie. Opens door. There's a drooling monster. It's a zombie. Kill it again. But no! Now we have a pet zombie named Phyllis following us everywhere. So my friend created this campaign where all of us were barbarians with low intelligence. My friend went as a dwarf, I as a Goliath, as it sounds, big and mean. My friend had created this room with pressure plates. When you stepped on one, a toxic arrow would strike. So my friend, the dwarf, started hitting all the pressure plates with his axe. I asked him what he was doing. He replies by pointing at his temple. If they have no ammunition, they cannot shoot us anymore. In the end, I just tossed him across the room. When I was making my first ever character, they already had weapons and armor due to their backstory, so I was looking through all the equipment I could get. I discovered something amazing. 1,000 ball bearings for 1 gold piece, and I had 15 gold. Moments later, I had 15,000 ball bearings and 0 gold. My first quest was we had to attack and destroy a forge in a cave hideout. After a long journey to get there, we got the idea to have some people sneak in and destroy the lava supply thing and cause the place to fill with lava and flush out all the enemies. Everything went according to plan, and right after our sneaky people got out, I dumped all 15,000 ball bearings in front of the exit. Every single enemy that left the cave fell flat on their ass, and we just poked them with our swords. The entire final battle of that well-thought-out and planned quest became completely trivial. My players used a laxative to poison a wizard so he'd use the outhouse. Once he was on the outhouse, they snuck up on him, opened the door, and unleashed hell upon him before he could as much as pull up his pants. They reduced the wizard to gore and finished with acid, which flushed the wizard down the latrine. As a DM, I set up a Christmas game where the big bad was Krampus, and the heroes were hired to free the children he had taken. After his defeat, they released the children, only to discover that Krampus only steals the bad children, so the heroes had to battle a horde of toddlers. In our last campaign, I had a bard that made a habit of attacking with healing items. One of these items is a perpetual pizza with pineapple, because DM thinks pineapple on pizza is heresy. The pizza lives in a bag of holding that my character doesn't entirely understand is a bag of holding. We were set upon by a particularly troublesome boss, and our tank's luck ran out. In an attempt to revive the tank, I offhanded the bag of holding while attempting to jam a slice of healing pizza in the tank's cake hole. I kinda missed, and instead lightly slapped the tank with the slice instead. Because we'd barely managed to scratch the boss, and to cope with my plus 13 pushing DM's buttons skill, the boss decides to try and grab the pizza from my hand. He also misses. I used my reaction to make an attack of opportunity against the boss with my offhand weapon. More specifically, I threw the bag of holding over his head. His ghost now lives in my bag of holding. Hello, my sweet little love cannolis. Thank you for sending your infinite-reaching cosmic attunement in our direction for the duration of this video. If you're new here, please say hello in the comments. And if you're not, I don't know, you're clever. You can come up with something. Please take some time to check out our D&D friends over at Adventurers Coffee Company. The link is in the description. Please use the code Mr. Ripper for 10% off a bag of truly superb coffee. It helps us a lot. They were kind enough to send me a bag of ground Dungeons and Dark Roast coffee, and it is absolutely delicious. For reals, thanks guys, you fucking rule. Regarding Dave's Coffee Wizardry series, we're gonna start with the pour over because the coffee I currently have is ground medium fine, and I grind coarse for cold brew. So that's how we're gonna do it. Whole bean all day, fam. Anyway, I had to order some important things for the coffee videos, so give me a few days for those to arrive, and then I'll get right on it. I'm really only set up at my current place for doing cold brew and doing pour over coffee, so that's gonna those are gonna be the topics of the videos, and then that's really gonna be it probably until I can afford a really nice espresso maker, and then fuck, I'll show you whatever I know. But that's gonna be, you know, years down the road, unless somebody wants to donate, you know, a multiple thousands of dollars espresso machine with enough pressure to properly extract a shot. But anyway, I digress. If you like R&B, check out my artist Johan Dahn's new single, Don't Need You, available now on all platforms. It's the first fully distributed release for the both of us, and we are really proud of it. Please sub for Nat 20s, please be nice to people, and please come back and join us again soon. I love you. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time. Take care.